Hey, welcome to, what is this thing called? It's called Old School Bleep. And we are here, we being Jeff Williams.
Jeff Williams.
Damon Soper.
Damon.
And I myself, Scott Faingold.
Push that button, pull that lever, the boys in Dallas are so clever. Eat that pizza, kill that chicken, it's all plastic, and you're all stricken. Well, you can wrap your hands for a technological advance. That's just another step toward doom. And look at contraption, dreamed into action. You're sleeping in the room, man, you're not even here, man.
We are here to reminisce and speculate about the Springfield music scene and surrounding areas and surrounding concepts, because we've all been involved in it for so long that we can't imagine not being so. And we've all played in numerous forums and projects and with each other and without each other and all up and down and all around. So we've got so many stories, and it just seems like there's got to be a place to put all that stuff, because it all just floats around in our brains, and if we get together and we talk, then it's in the air, but it doesn't get captured anywhere. So we thought, why not try to get it down somewhere and share it with all the people, because it can nourish all of us.
And you know, here's something I'm going to say right now before we get this thing rolling too much. A lot of times I tell stories and then people act like I'm making the story up. And then they talk to somebody else and then they have verification of it. Well, as far as I know, but I just want to say that right now, I'll try to keep my stories as accurate as I possibly can.
Now, see,
okay.
now we can fact check each other, because that's the thing. We were around for a lot of each other's stories.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, we might end up with this would come up with like a Rashomon kind of episode where we all tell the same story in different ways.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see about that. I have a couple of ideas for that, but that's for the future. Right now, we want to kind of establish for all the people who somehow or another don't have any idea who the heck we are and what we've done. Sort of establish, I wouldn't say credentials, I hate to use a word like that, but just establish our identities, establish who we are, where we come from, what we do, what we've done, and then that'll give you context for the rest of what we're going to bring on in here, I think. So to that end, I think we're going to try to talk about, you know, our stuff first, just as kind of a launching pad to move forward and talk about the larger scene. Well, I mean, the first band that I was in that played out was around 1982. It was called Flawless Ketchup, and it had grown out of some other concepts and ideas.
I just want to sit around. I don't want to have to think. I just want to watch TV.
But it was basically my friend Matt Galletti, who's since passed away, on drums, and Pete Bleicher, who actually left before we became Flawless Ketchup, on guitar, and Tom Armstrong, who was the mostly lead singer. But that grew out of a cassette that we had made in the summer of 1981. That was my solo album. I put it in quotes, but it really was. I guess maybe album should be in quotes because it was made on a cassette. But it was a full length recording, and it was under my name, Scott Faingold, and the album was called Lick My Bass, and I was all of 14 years old when I recorded it.
Holy smokes.
And we put it out there, and it got some exposure. I mean, I remember it got written up in Jet Lag magazine as far away as St. Louis, which was in one of their critics' top 10 lists, maybe as a joke, I don't know. And after that, we sort of started getting a little more serious. There were no drums on that record. It was a rather experimental and weird affair, kind of influenced by the Residents and early PIL.
Lick my bass, baby, lick my bass. Lick my bass, baby, lick my bass. Golfing is a real tough game. You can always get better, and it's never the same.
But Flawless Ketchup was a little more conventional punk. We did, I mean, for 14-year-olds living in Springfield in 1981, or 15-year-olds, we had a pretty cool record collection to draw covers from. You know, we did Paraubu, Non-Alignment Pact. We did the Undertones, Teenage Kicks. We did a B-52 song long before Rome and
long before
those days.
Right.
But we didn't even play Rock Lobster. We did 6060842, which is a pretty,
wow, that's a good one.
It's a good obscure track from the first. And we played a couple of weird shows. We played. There was really nowhere to play. Like there were no underage. All ages locations to play in 1981, 1982. And punk rock was something that maybe there were 6 people in town who liked, maybe 12.
It was so weird at that point when all of a sudden you would discover somebody else outside of your group that liked that. You know what I mean? Because there was like 4 of us. And then we were like, oh my God, there's other people.
Exactly.
It was like this desert, and then you discovered that there were little pockets.
Right, exactly. I mean, we had no idea that you and Gary and Baker and everybody were over on the north side, and we were over we were going to southeast, and we eventually heard of each other, but it was weird little pockets. So we would do stuff to try to just play in front of people. We played we played a Battle of the Bands at Springfield High, and lost. And we played, we lost to Tim Hart's old band, whose name I can never remember.
That's what I was going to say. What was that band called?
Yeah, I can't remember. God, I usually know it. Tim would know, obviously. So, but we also did like a thing where we played illegally after hours at the old Fox movie theater, where we just spread the word among teenagers and
word of mouth.
Yep, word of mouth. And we had a friend, Tom. I don't think he worked there as an usher yet. I think that was later. But we had friends who worked there as ushers, and they just waited till the boss went home, and then they brought in. We didn't even have a PA though. I mean, Tom would be singing through a microphone that was plugged into the same amp as guitar was.
Right.
I have no idea what that must have sounded like.
Was that Carl Tonjes was the manager? Was that maybe
might have
something
been
like that?
No, I mean the manager was to us, very old guy who's probably younger than the 3 of us are now.
Right.
But
seemed
definitely. I mean, I think technically, if I was 16, I would definitely think that I was old at this point. But he went. He would leave, this guy, he would go over to Ballestri's Bar and Grill, which was across the street, and they would watch. And he would say, I'm coming back, but then he would just get in his car after he had a couple drinks, and he would just drive away. And then it was time to have fun at the after hours pub that was the Fox Theater, like free popcorn.
And where was the Fox?
The Fox was on MacArthur.
MacArthur, right.
On the corner there?
Yeah, on the corner there.
But not down from the Esquire.
No, not the Esquire. It was the Fox. Basically where like the where Dollar Tree is now, kind of.
Which Gary Swaggerty, by the way, used to call the Esquire the Mouse-quire. Because he swears, he's like, Jesus Christ, I was sitting in there, that buttered and piss on the floor, and then all of a sudden something bumps into my foot, and I thought it was Laura. I looked down, it's a damn mouse running around, freaking mouse wire. Anyway,
Mouse
sorry.
Squire.
Mouse Square. That's hilarious. Yeah, this was the Fox, which was like, it was just, I think it had 2 screens maybe.
It was kind of like where, oh God, where there was a Diamond's Pizza, or the
the strip
Diamond's-
mall there?
It was right
Yeah,
down,
it was on that
like
strip, right.
to the west, like the very
Never
far
went to that one.
southeast corner, the southeast corner, kind of closest to MacArthur, and it was just it was the Fox.
It was
Theater.
a freestanding. It had its own building. It wasn't part of the strip
Yeah.
mall, and it was
That's why that's part of why that lot is so cleared out, kind of looking.
because it used to be a theater there. And it was a big screen, and we played underneath the screen. I remember they would project the movie behind us, which I'm sure was violating some kind of royalty issue. But we did that and never got in trouble, although I remember the cops did come around and we had to look out, and we just kept quiet and closed the doors until they went away.
Tom has gone on to have a
Tom Armstrong,
really good
he had a great
career
music
now.
career. Yeah, he was in a sort of a grunge era band called the Hollow Men that played very heavy kind of psych rock, and they were really great. They did a lot of touring, played with bands like Sonic Youth and Screaming Trees and stuff like that.
And they were based out of Iowa City.
They were based out of Iowa City.
Iowa City, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And then eventually he became a country artist. I guess you did a show.
I did a
with him.
show when he came to town, and I had no idea he had that kind of background and played with you. I didn't know any of that, so I just thought he was a touring country act that I was just doing the backing band for, because he's so good
Right.
at what he does. And we do have another episode that you can catch in the future that we do go into more detail about Tom Armstrong.
Yeah, his punk rock days. Flawless Ketchup didn't exist for very long. It was around 1982. We were kind of a 2 high school band. We had Tom Armstrong was from Springfield High, and me and Matt Galletti, the drummer, were from Southeast. But one time we were invited to play at this girl's Sweet 16 party, and it was a weird situation because Tom knew everybody. It was it was a Springfield High popular kids party for a popular Sweet 16 girl who was turning that age. And I guess, I don't know how we got the show, but it wasn't like a bunch of punk rockers or whatever. And we were doing, like I said, Devo, and we did Mongoloid, we did Non-Alignment Packed by Pere Ubu, we did some Clash, we did some Sex Pistols, Elvis Costello, Mystery Dance was probably the only song we could have played, and we did it. We played the B-52s and the Undertones, and so we weren't really anybody's idea of a commercial band or of a sock hop kind of band. And it was at this rented place called the Dad's Club. And it was just there were a couple of adult chaperones, but there was alcohol being served at the Sweet 16 party.
What?
Yeah,
To the parents or to the kids?
to everybody. There weren't that many parents. The kids were drinking. I remember Tom Armstrong got pretty much hammered. I mean, he was 15, I think. I was 14, and I didn't drink then. But we played this show. There's a recording of the show. And we just did our normal set, and it was really people just kind of milling around. They would plot after each song, and there's pictures of me at the time. There's a pretty funny picture of me on Facebook that I think either Eric or Christopher Zander or both kind of collaborated on making an art piece out of it. But I basically had like a huge sort of Afro, Jufro, whatever you call it, Isro. I would wear these sunglasses, and I wore these sort of weird hand-me-down clothes with like, it didn't quite fit right, flood jeans. I didn't look like a punk. I just looked like a real weirdo. And it was how I looked all the time. I didn't dress up special for, for the gig. And Tom had kind of a clean-cut look, and so did Matt. And we were playing songs, mostly covers. We had a couple of originals. We had a song Tom wrote called "Brain Damage" that was about a guy who got a lobotomy.
Now we're gonna do a little tune that I wrote. It's about frontal lobotomies, and it's called "Brain Damage." So the doctors cut it out. Now he can't live on his own. They sent him away to a little other room where everyone leaves him alone. Got brain damage, brain
damage. And then we had a song called "TV" that was from Lick My Bass, and it was just a very, very bare bones punk song about watching TV. And but we were playing, and it was a lot of what you would say, there's the whole jocks versus nerds, jocks versus punk idea. This was a very jock party, and a lot of wrestling team, football team kind of people there. And so I was, and we didn't know anybody. So there's something freeing about that. That's something about touring where you find out later on when nobody knows you, you're in a different kind of headspace. But if you're surrounded by people that you do know, you can be a lot more self-conscious.
So did the person who the Sweet 16 party was for, did they know who you were?
They knew Tom, I guess. But I don't really know. It was sort of like they didn't know anybody else who had a band at all. Like, hey, let's just and maybe the price was right. I maybe got paid $15 or something. Right? So there's like three of us, so it was $5 each. So we were. So it was a very weird thing. And what was odd was I knew some of the kids from before because I'd been. The busing thing happened where everybody I went elementary and middle school with on the west side, I got bused over to Southeast while they all went to Springfield. So there were some people who knew me, but I was playing. So I was playing bass, and I wasn't really a musician. I owned a bass. Ted would have called me a bass owner rather than a bass player. But which was his standard insult for a lot of the people in town. But we. But I was 14, so I had a kind of an excuse. But instead of going, I went to lessons, and I wouldn't say, teach me how to play the guitar or teach me how to play bass. I would say, teach me how to play these songs, that was it. So I was playing my bass and just on stage, and we played the song, and in the middle, right as we hit the last note of Elvis Costello's song "Mystery Dance," it was like dong dong, dong dong, that two-note thing or two-chord thing, two notes if you're a bass player. The last time we hit it, I'm sure the guy had no idea the song was going to end, but as I hit the final note, this wrestling team type guy leaps on the stage, grabs the microphone, and says, "The bass player is a gay motherfucker." As loud as he could, like louder than the band would have been. And I was half across the stage, and I sauntered back up to the mic, and I just said, "What of it?" and then walked back away. And it got a huge laugh, or what seemed like a huge laugh at the time.
I tried, and I'm still in the mind. Tune anymore, I'm not satisfied. The bass player's a gay motherfucker! And what of it? Hey, I'm really glad that you guys like us, because we really like you. Here's a song called "Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue."
But I really didn't have a problem being. I was
That's-
totally used to being denigrated anyway.
That's what I was gonna say,
So
too.
it was a way of going on stage. If somebody insults you, that's like a badge,
Right.
You know,
And especially if they insult you in the way that they think is really getting the dig in at you, and we'd be like, if
that's how
not
you're gonna call
really,
it.
that's
Right.
fine.
I mean-
Actually, it reminds me when we would go. We didn't really go. Well, this is around the time we stopped going out, like to the state fair. But so we went out there, and I had on a Black Flag shirt. My brother had his hair he had like some sort of thing going on with his hair, and Gary Swaggerty had, I think he maybe had like a anarchy thing shaved into his head, or I don't know. It would change a lot, it changed a lot. But I had like this huge kind of frohawk sort of a thing, and my brother's hair was he had like kind of bleached it out and kind of spiked, like kind of had it spiked or whatever. And we're just walking around. They had our skateboards. Steve M, was with us too, and we just had a look that was different than most of the people out there. And all of a sudden, this dude, Daryl Phelps, who actually Bruce wrote some deckhead stuff about Daryl Phelps, and he and his friends saw us, and they all had the black concert T-shirts, and just the hair is kind of like longer, and they've got the chain wallets and everything. And all of a sudden, I didn't even see them coming towards us, but they were kind of coming towards us, and they were a little bit older than us, so you're kind of intimidated, but also, you could outrun them. We all ran track and stuff. You know what I mean? We felt like we could run away from these dudes. But you still were kind of like, didn't really want to get in a fight. And just all of a sudden you just hear, black faggot. And it's like, oh, God, here we go. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, okay, you think that's a huge insult to, I don't, that's
Right,
fine. That is not, but in their minds, it's like the worst thing you can possibly say. And so they're coming coming up on us. And so we just, we'd like take off. That was around the time we're like, maybe the state fair's not,
not really the best.
maybe it's not really for us. Who did this came across one of my stupid Instagram feeds not too long ago, but something you said reminded me, the Rosie Greer, where there was the guy had two heads. They like sewed on Rosie Greer's head onto the other. Do you remember that one?
Is he a football player?
Yeah, he was a football player. He was like one of the best linebackers, and then he turned into an actor when he retired.
Right, but
it was
he
like
had
the early '70s. Kind of had a fro, was big dude, and they sewed his head onto this, I think it was like sewed onto like a racist body or something.
Was it a kid's show? No.
No, but it reminds me of something you said, like it would have been the same director, but
Right.
I don't think it was a kid's show, because it was like bloody looking, all around his head that was sewn onto this, he's like, get away from me, you goddamn coon, and Rose Greer's like, of course, playing like the, shut up, cracker, so it's like that's going on back and forth.
That sounds like the greatest show ever. Oh, the actor who played Mr. Woodman was John Sylvester White. We were talking about. I was ranting about Mr. Woodman earlier during a mic check. So wait, let's see. Rosie Greer
the man
head.
with, like, two
Let's
heads.
just see. Rosie
See what
Greer,
happens.
two heads. See what that tells
It's
me.
got to bring something up.
Yeah, it doesn't. But I didn't even write it right, and it gave me two heads. It was a movie, 1972 movie called The Thing with Two Heads.
Who directed that?
I
It
don't
was-
know, but
It was directed by someone named Lee Frost, and it was, Ray Milland was the racist guy. It was Ray Milland and Rosie Greer.
Oh,
In case you thought he was lying.
oh no. we might have to put that. Post a picture of that thing.
I think we should just talk about this.
That's
hilarious.
That's
Rosie
a good
Greer.
intro.
So this is actually, is it recording now?
Oh, yeah,
Awesome.
we've been-
So,
yeah.
okay.
Recording?
All
Okay.
right. So we want to start.
This is great.
This is the best podcast
Yeah,
of
this
all
is-
time.
so far.
Let's just talk about all of our 70s TV shows that have nothing to do with anything. Oh, I did tell the story about about the movie Berserk with Joan Crawford. Have you ever seen that movie?
Berserk. I probably did when I was a little kid.
It was
but I
like
don't
a.
remember.
It was set in a circus, and I was young. I saw it, but it wasn't a kids show. But it was on somehow during kids show
Right.
times, and it was about like a serial killing happening at a circus, and stuff was happening where like this somebody fell off of like they had knives, like a bed of knives
Below.
laying underneath the
Like booby
people-
trapped.
like booby trap. People fell off the
tightrope or high
tightrope,
wire,
and,
yeah.
the tightrope, and that kept on happening. And the main thing I remembered was there was a scene where a guy goes and he's it's like after hours, the tents are up, and he goes to smoke a cigarette, and he leans against the canvas tent, and somehow somebody puts a spike through the tent and through the back of his head, and it comes out his forehead.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was just so freaked out by that as a kid.
Right.
But then I was like, I didn't know what movie it was.
Right.
And for years, I was just like, any circus movie, I would be like, is this the one?
Right,
You know, some
right,
old
right.
circus movie. I watched all the horrible, boring, like The Greatest Show on Earth, The Doris
Right,
Day, or whatever.
right.
Nothing happened. And then one day, I think it was like I had somehow, just because it was Joan Crawford, it got picked up in the grand days of DVRs picking things for you based on what you'd done before, and I guess that was the original great AI. It should never have gone beyond that.
Right.
If all AI did was pick movies for you based on what you'd already watched, then we would all be safe. But this Joan Crawford movie, and I was watching it, I wasn't thinking about it, and all of a sudden this guy goes and he's going to smoke a cigarette in the canvas, and I remembered it exactly right. The spike came through the back of his head and through his forehead.
It was
that
that.
movie, and it was like having a drug flashback. Not that I would know what that is like, but it was like suddenly it was like my whole skin tried to fly off.
Right.
And but then I was talking to Christopher Zander, and he had the same experience when he was a little kid, but he didn't know what the movie was. And I told him
Same
about
movie?
it. The same
Oh,
movie.
okay.
He had the same. But the thing is, if you look it up on the internet, the poster for the movie has the guy with the spike coming out
so
of his
that was like
forehead.
a main scene.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
big
so that was
seller.
like, I guess, the big setup. But I didn't know who Joan Crawford was when I was a little kid. I don't know what
remember
my
some movie
parents were doing.
Was on it was like made for TV movie or something, but a person was like strangled in their bathtub, and I just remember the person was like underwater and their eyes were open, and it just freaked me out for a long time. I don't even know.
Like, not Marathon Man.
I kind of remember that also. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was.
And I just remember being kind of traumatized, like,
Well,
people
some
can
of the-
die in a bath.
some of the stuff there you
Right.
could just see. I remember. I don't know how this was, because the scariest movie when I was pretty young was Alien, right? I mean, where it took it to a new level. But before that, my brother and I somehow, I don't know how we talked my mom into it, but we went to see, she dropped us off to see a movie called It's Alive. And it was about this
It's about a
baby,
baby and-
that
Oh,
came
yes.
out of the gurney. It had like claw, like two claw fingers, like a slee stack, right? Like,
yeah.
and it clawed its way out, and it would
Bill
just.
Walton.
It was bloody, just a bloody baby that would like scurry around from corner to corner like really fast. But it was the scariest nightmare I'd ever seen in my life. This baby had horrible teeth, man. I mean, it was.
Did
just
you know
like
that
a
Bill
kill-
Walton was a slee stack?
What?
The basketball player?
They were. You know what's weird? I just watched a Land of the Lost clip on YouTube. And I was like, God,
There were
these
some
dudes
slee
are
stacks.
tall as heck. What is going on? The slee stacks. I didn't think about when I was a little kid how tall the slee stacks were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't talk about it that much, but
But he was one of the sleep.
he was a slee stack.
Bill Walton.
I talk about your pointless stunt casting. Nobody would ever know.
I
but
never
yet there he
knew-
was.
I would have never known that. That's crazy. I mean, I just watched something about Bill Walton.
but
on-
not about Land of the Lost. It was just,
he never talked about. He never brought that
no,
up.
he doesn't.
it's probably not as proud as.
I don't think it is. I think
Going to
he is.
take that under the counter Sid and Marty Krofft money.
Yeah.
It's like
I remember David. Let's see, who's played Starsky and Hutch? David Soul was in
Oh,
that
yeah,
movie,
David Soul.
made-for-TV movie called Salem's Lot.
Oh yeah. That was freaky when I was a
That
little
was
kid.
so scary
that
when I was
freaked
just
me out.
the kid scratching on the window. You ever,
but the scariest was
his brother was like,
the one where
"Let me
Karen
in."
Black
Of
was
course he
getting
lets him
chased
in.
by the toy
Karen Black was Burned Offerings?
No, it was that one. It was like a short. It was like almost a Twilight Zone type thing.
Oh,
But it was the
okay.
one where she had an African statue or something, and it came to life
Oh
and was
my
chasing her around.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I'm
totally
talking
remember
about?
that. Those
Yeah.
things, anyone that had the little, like any sort of a thing.
You know,
to-
haven't seen that one?
Was that Outer's Limit or
It was-
Outer Limit or?
I think it was called. It was something like. I think it was just called Tales of Terror.
Oh,
And it was just a one
there
shot.
used to be so many cool little
right
shows
little
like that.
shows like that. And I know now all we have is
well, like
Black
Night
Mirror.
Gallery.
Night
You know,
Gallery.
Night
Oh,
Gallery,
yeah, that was a
Nerd.
The music was awesome.
That music was crazy.
That
And that
was-
was Rod Serling, right? Like after
After
Twilight Zone.
Doctor Who theme song was really cool.
Yeah, Trilogy of Terror.
Trilogy of Terror. Yeah, I do remember that,
Yeah,
man.
that's
Karen
the thing.
Black.
Oh, I've seen that
Yeah.
poster.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Come
That
to
thing.
life and chasing her
Yeah,
around her
that was
apartment.
freaky. And it was like some sort of stop motion sort of a
Right.
thing, but it was, that was the AI back then,
Right.
right?
That
I
was
mean,
as
so
good as
when
you
you
could
saw
get.
that, it was just like,
Well, it was freakier, It was like those Ray Harryhausen, Arabian Nights type things where there would be
Oh,
all
that's
the
right.
freaky characters who were animated, but they would just had that eerie feel to them.
Yeah, what was the one? Jason and the Argonauts.
Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, yeah,
right,
yeah.
Man, that one.
Yeah, some of the Game of Thrones looked like it was tributing that.
Trying
some
to
of the
do a
stuff,
little-
Some of the stuff with the White Walkers kind of had that vibe.
So we start playing. He starts just going crazy, and so it's like kind of just running into the Tober brothers and Dave. So they kind of start too. It was like a pit was happening. It was like
they were
four
like
people,
four guys,
just
yeah.
four dudes just hitting each other. Young Hoon Kim all of a sudden he spun around, he jumped in the air, and boom, he hits a light fixture, not meaning to, and he goes over, crashes, here again, and the manager of the club, owner, whoever, he's like, no, that's it. There was an okay amount of people. There was a lot of curious people that there was a band called Millions of Dead Cops playing a Rock Against Reagan event, right? So there were people there who were not. I don't remember any like counter protests or things against it, but there was a police presence. That is absolutely for sure.